Welcome to the Hard 90 with your host, Gage Kirkland. Here in March, and finally, spring training is underway. You know, it's been a long time coming, and my goodness, it feels so good to turn on the TV and to be able to watch some baseball. And I got to tell you, as a longtime baseball fan, it's one of the terms known that spring is coming, when you're able to hear the pop of the mitt and the crack of the bat and every good thing that baseball has brought to us over the years. So spring training, games are underway, and as of March 7th, the standings look like this. In the Grapefruit League, to bring up the top three spots, the Miami Marlins are actually at the top seed with a 4-1 record, followed by Detroit and the New York Mets. Now, the Grapefruit League is down in Florida, and the other league, the Cactus League out in Arizona, Kansas City on top, 6-2, or pardon me, they are 6-2. The Chicago Cubs right behind them at 4-2, and Colorado, surprisingly, at 4-2 as well. These records don't include ties, and there are some of those in spring training. So if I left out a couple draws, that's on me. But it's really good to get back to spring training just to see how these teams are up to. Also, something I've noticed this spring is the lack of 9-inning games. And at first I was kind of a little upset just because Major League Baseball didn't really tell anyone they were going to do 5, 6, 7, 8-inning games. And then they just kind of started happening. I think the first spring training, day of spring training games, I want to say there was 2, maybe 1 or 2 9-inning games, and the rest were mostly 5 or 6-inning games. I don't mind that very much, and I think I know why they're doing this, because the minor league season is delayed a month after the Major League season gets underway. So Major League Baseball starts its opening day on April 1st. And after that, minor league baseball gets set up in May. So my guess as to why they are not playing full 9-inning games for the most part is, you don't want to ramp up these minor leaguers who aren't going to make their major league roster just to give them a month off and then have them, be ramped up and all ready to go by the time May rolls around. So I think they're shortening these games to literally not overstress these kids in the Major League camp who are ultimately not going to make the Major League roster. That's my guess, and I don't mind that at all if there is a legitimate reason for them to be doing this, and that would seem to be it, but who knows? So baseball is underway, and something that I thought that was really funny, we've played, obviously, about 7 to 10 games about now. Trevor Bauer has thrown twice for the LA Dodgers and has done well. He's thrown about 5 innings, 5 strikeouts, pretty typical. However, against the San Diego Padres, he did something that caught people's eye. He actually pitched with one eye closed, and Trevor was quoted as saying, "I figured if they can't score off me with one eye open, it's going to be difficult to score off me with 2 eyes open." Trevor Bauer did actually pretty well with one eye closed, and he had been working on that in spring training just as a mechanism to, I guess to try to be accurate with his off-speed stuff and his fastball with one eye open and one eye closed. And I didn't know he was going to do that in a game, but there he was against the San Diego Padres, MLB's number 2 ranked team in all of baseball, and he just went right after him. However, San Diego didn't start Fernando Tatis Jr., they didn't start Manny Machado, they didn't start Will Myers, they didn't start Eric Hosmer, so the vast majority of San Diego's potent lineup was sitting that one out. But it's going to be very interesting to see how Trevor Bauer and the Dodgers shape up with Manny and the Padres. So we're in that part of the year now where we don't have a lot of free agent signings anymore, and there were 2 to happen over the last couple weeks, and these 2 were still pretty big names, and they were the last 2 big names to come off the board. Jake Odorizzi, pardon if I did not pronounce that right, I definitely butchered that. He and the Astros have agreed to a 2-year deal with a player option, and this helps a relatively declining team. That rotation is still really impressive. They still got a bunch of arms. Zach Greinke, for example. And I say declining only because Houston flew so high a couple of years ago. And the cheating scandal is on its own thing. But they played a lot of really good baseball, even aside from that. And the Astros were a World Series favorite for a few years in a row. But, after losing George Springer, and, it's going to be tough to sort of figure out what kind of team these guys are going to be. They're still good, but they aren't a World Series favorite in the AL anymore. And moving on to the second player, Jackie Bradley Jr. signed a 2-year deal with the Milwaukee Brewers. And I got to be honest, I'm not really high on the Brewers this year. This definitely helps them in a very balanced NL Central, to say the least. I still think the Cardinals are going to win that division, but this definitely helps the Brew Crew. He does partner with Lorenzo Cain and Christian Yelich in that outfield, and I got to say, that's a very solid outfield. Low Cain in center, Yelich in right, JBJ in left. That is a very, very solid outfield, without question. So if you're headed over to Milwaukee, you best believe you got to hit that ball in the gap, or else that ball's going to be caught. And now some other headlines to sort of tie in spring training as a whole. This is big news. Every baseball team, for the exception of the Toronto Blue Jays, who will be playing their home games in Florida starting at the year, will begin with fans in the stands after the Chicago Cubs made it official. This is huge. Every single ballpark in the United States will be allowing fans to come into the building at some type of capacity limit. This is honestly very, very awesome. And I've been sort of back and forth on my stance of fans in the stands. But it obviously comes with a certain notion of how coronavirus is doing in the United States. And frankly, it's getting better. It's getting a lot better. And I can't speak to, other states and other things. Places like Texas and Mississippi are completely reopening and making masks mandatory, making them voluntary. But, in other states, like where I'm from here in California, the numbers have just gotten incredibly more optimistic. The vaccination rate is way up. The hospitalizations are down. The positivity rates are down. All the things that you want to hear are happening in a lot of parts of the country. And my prior stance on fans in the stands came in, the fall months when college football was raving on. And, these states in the South and in the Midwest who were particularly doing a poor job of containing the virus were allowing fans at like 30, 40, 50%. And you could tell they weren't really doing their part in socially distancing. And that's kind of where I drew the line for myself. But with baseball, it's an outdoor game like football, but we're just in a better place as a country and how we've been able to handle this. So I'm optimistic, and we'll see how it goes. Obviously, everyone who buys a ticket will be paying an exorbitant amount to get in the ballpark. And these tickets are going to be insanely expensive and marked up completely because there is an insanely high amount of demand. The supply is limited. It's at capacity, or at a certain percentage of capacity, likely only to be around 20 to 25%. And fans are desperate to see their teams. And there will be a lot of people willing to pay a high price to get into the ballpark. So prices will be up, and we'll see how it goes. So those fans who are able to get inside, man, they're in for a treat. And moving on to the next subject, Trevor Bauer, back on him again, almost signed with the Mets after seeing his leaked merchandise on his website. This was super interesting, as his agent, Rachel Luba, did an interview on a podcast with Barstool Sports. Basically, the whole merchandise troll job that Trevor Bauer's website did, it was completely unrelated to Trevor Bauer himself. And apparently, per this interview, the agent called Trevor Bauer after seeing it, and Bauer was upset because he obviously didn't make that direction. And he was right then ready to sign with the Mets, as saying, I can't do that to a certain franchise. I can't just post merchandise and say I'm going to that team and not choose that team. His agent, told him to take a walk, sort of take a breather. And after he came back from the walk, he had chosen the Dodgers. And that's just fascinating of how quickly, that mind could be made up, and how close Trevor Bauer was to actually signing with the Mets. Apparently, he told his agent to call the Dodgers and say, it's done. We are going to sign with the New York Mets. And that was it. But his agent told him to stay calm and just think about it. And think about, why you're making this decision. And, that was apparently it. So Trevor Bauer made his way to the Dodgers. And I got to tell you, I was really happy to hear this, because as a Dodger fan, I think Rachel Luba's one of the best agents out there now, because he convinced him to come to LA, or at least told him to think about it. She didn't convince him to do anything. But that was something I thought was very interesting. Also, Major League Baseball released their over and under projections and a win-loss sort of deal. They had teams like the Dodgers, Padres, Mets, and White Sox, and gave them a win amount and asked the public to say over or under. Do you think they'll win more games or fewer games than the amount listed? So they had the Dodgers at 102.5, and I'm picking the over for the Dodgers. I think they're going to win their division. Not by a lot, because the Padres are very good this year. And I'm not going to say how many games I think the Dodgers are going to win. At least not right now. In a later show, I will certainly do that. But, I think 102 is on the lower end for this team, and that's saying a lot, because, the Dodgers are exceptionally good. So we'll just leave it at that. The San Diego Padres were listed at 94.5, and I also picked the over for that too. The Padres are right behind the Dodgers, and they have caught up. They really have. And I think they'll win more than 94.5. I would not be surprised if it was 95 or 96. But again, we'll come with the actual predictions in a later episode of the Hard 90. And after that, they had the Mets at 90.5. I'm going to take the under on this one. I think they'll make the playoffs, potentially as a second seed in the NL wildcard hunt. They'll finish second to whoever is second in the NL West, either the Dodgers or the Padres. My belief is that it'll be the Padres, but the Mets could honestly win 90 games, and they would still finish at the under here. They do have a lot of great talent on that team. Francisco Lindor is there now. It could prove to be critical for that team, and that one piece that they really needed just to put them over the top. But I still feel that they're a little ways away from, the 90 win club. I think somewhere right just beneath that 90.5 is probably a good spot for them. I still think the Braves are the cream of the crop in that division. So I think the Mets at about 90, 89 wins or so is probably a good mark for them. And after that, they also had the White Sox at the same number at 90.5. And I think they're going to go over this. By how much, who knows? I think they'll actually win their division. The AL Central, I think that's mostly it for grabs. The Twins are obviously a formidable foe, but when you look at the White Sox, and I've been high on this team for so long, for the last couple of years, and they've only gotten better every offseason. They made the playoffs last year, didn't really perform well, but they've improved their team. And, the guys that they've put together and the roster they have built is impressive. So we'll have to see how it goes. But I like the White Sox winning more than 90 games, 90.5. I would say 93 might be a good number for them. But, we'll see. We will see how it goes and turns out. So in other news, Jose Cansenko. And if you're familiar with Jose Canseco, you probably watched baseball in the 1980s or so, and maybe a little bit in the 90s. He and Mark McGwire played for the Oakland Athletics to sort of form a Mario and Luigi type of Smash Bros. To hit home runs for the Oakland A's way back in the 1980s. And the thing about Jose Canseco is that he's been very, how shall we say this, outspoken on Twitter recently. He's completely washed up, and I think he's craving publicity because he's, arguing with, kids on Twitter and just doing all this stuff. Well, he tweeted this week saying that he has, quote, nothing to lose, and that Mark McGwire used to cork his bat before every single game. Every game, and was apparently never caught. I'm not sure if I believe this to be true, and if it is, it's pretty shocking because, for those who don't know, corking your bat is illegal, and it essentially gives you more pop in the barrel, which makes the ball go farther. It's not steroids, you're not injecting anything into yourself, but, it's, the cork of a wine bottle. It's kind of got that spring to it. And if, people catch you doing that, there are some punishments to follow, at least. And if you remember, Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa kept baseball popular with the home run race they engaged in. Sosa for the Cubs and McGwire for the Cardinals. If this is true, it's very impactful for the game of baseball, and not in a good way. Quick note, thank you so much for tuning into the podcast. If you hear a static sound, I am completely aware of this and am looking to resolve the issue. However, if it does make to the final cut, please know that this issue will not persist. Thank you so much for taking a listen. So Major League Baseball released its power rankings recently. They had the Dodgers at the top, followed by the Padres at number 2 with the Yankees at number 3. The Braves, followed by the Mets, the White Sox, the Twins, the Blue Jays, the Rays, and the Astros. Now, of course, I have my opinions, and I think they got a few picks right, but I think they could do better. So I'm going to start with number 10. I think the AL champs, the defending AL champs, Tampa Bay Rays, are the 10th team in the league. They had them at 9. I agree that they should be at that sort of space, but they might be a little bit worse for wear with the loss of a few of their key guys in their rotation. At number 9, I have the St. Louis Cardinals. Now, after getting a guy like Nolan Arenado, you're going to be very competitive moving forward, and I think the Cardinals have a, not quite the red carpet, but they have a really good chance to win the NL Central this year. It will be balanced, sure, but I think the Cardinals do make up for a lot of drag that they have. And, man, Paul Goldschmidt and Nolan Arenado in the same lineup was the NL West's dream a couple of years ago. So at number 8, I got the Twins. And the Minnesota Twins were ranked at number 7 on MLB's list and number 8 on mine. Again, I think the Twins are a playoff team, just not an AL Central champion. My number 7 will be the Toronto Blue Jays. MLB had them at number 8. I just flip-flopped them with the Twins. I think the Blue Jays are going to be really exciting to watch this year, especially against the Yankees, who are coming up shortly on this list. At number 6, I got the New York Mets. I think they were rated just a tiny bit high on MLB's power rankings. Again, I don't think they're the best team in their division, but it'll be very exciting to see how that race goes with the Atlanta Braves. At number 5, I got the Chicago White Sox. And the White Sox, man, they're going to do some damage in that Central. Just trust me on that one. We've talked about them already, but the Chicago White Sox at number 5. At number 4, I have the New York Yankees. MLB had them at number 3. I have them at number 4. And I actually flip-flopped them with the Atlanta Braves. That's who I have at number 3. The Atlanta Braves are going to be very good this year. They have Charlie Morton in that rotation now, which I think is a stellar addition for that team. They have a lot of great young pitching, and they looked very, very promising last year. So I have the Braves at number 3, and at number 2, the San Diego Padres. I mean, what's to say? This team completely improved their rotation. They extended Fernando Tatis Jr., just an incredible team to watch out for. And at number 1, the LA Dodgers. The defending champs are back at it again, signing Trevor Bauer, just making the league that more difficult to deal with. Or I guess the league will have difficulty with the Dodgers. So we'll see how it goes, but that's how I round out my top 10. And just a little bit of fun to end up the show today. There was an article I saw on Twitter that ranked the team's fans who drank the most at ballparks. And this is so interesting because having a beer at a ball game with a hot dog, man, is just one of the best combos out there. And if you're not a baseball fan and you're just listening to this podcast, which I appreciate very much, when you get the chance, maybe not this year, if you want to, absolutely, but get out to a ball game. And of course, if you're of age, order a beer. My go-to is a hazy IPA. But, if you're into that, order a beer and get a hot dog and just sit there and watch the game unfold. It is one of the best experiences out there. I kid you not, and I cannot wait to get back out and do that again. But they ranked these teams' fans who drink the most at the ballpark. And the number 1 team whose fans drink the most are the Chicago Cubs. Pardon me, I got that wrong. The Chicago White Sox drink the most. I actually got that abbreviation wrong in my notes. My apologies. The Chicago White Sox fans drink the most, and that, to me, is just fascinating. At number 2 is the Atlanta Braves, and man, that's a brand new stadium with brand new offerings over there in suburbia Atlanta. It's not surprised by that at all. And the third is the Cincinnati Reds fans out there by the Ohio River. Cincinnati. They actually have the most amount of breweries per capita in the United States. Did you know that? A pretty neat stat, if you ask me. I mean, I'm always down for a good Friday night at a brewery with some good food and some good memories, all that kind of good stuff. Cincinnati leads that category per capita. Pretty cool. The team's fans who spend the most on average on alcohol in one sitting are the New York Met fans. And they, on average, spend $53 on alcohol. Now, you got to imagine, because it's New York, those prices are inflated. And, teams like Cincinnati, where the cost of living is not as high as New York, the alcohol is likely going to be cheaper. And I think their average spend was about almost half at $27. So, pretty interesting to hear. And to round up the rear, Philadelphia, Oakland, and San Francisco were at the bottom of that list. Just as a reference, if your team wasn't mentioned, it was somewhere in the middle. So that's it for this episode of The Hard 90. If you like this episode, share it with some friends and family. Also, please give the podcast a rating and subscribe on Apple Podcasts and the brand new YouTube channel. Episodes will be released on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube moving forward, in addition to wherever you get your podcasts. So take care, everybody, and I'll see you next time on The Hard 90.